Is Xbox One the only game console that ever got obsoleted by its successor due to perfect backwards compatibility and pretty much no upside of playing on the console compared to playing on Xbox Series consoles? Well, this is an interesting question, isn't it, John? Because typically there's always a good reason to hold on to your older consoles for some reason, if you're an enthusiast. But I am struggling to think of why I'd want to hold on to an Xbox One S if I've got the Series S or the Series X.
Well, especially the Xbox One VCR.
Yeah.
I have an idea.
We've seen
Kinect.
some games.
I was gonna say it. Yeah. You gotta have one of those launch units with the Kinect. That's it.
So I do think that we've seen similarly close things, but we're still some very tiny reasons to keep original. So obviously PlayStation 2 had exceptionally good backwards compatibility. That was basically like 100% compatible with the library. Not actually 100%. It was like 99 point whatever percent compatible. There was like a small handful of games that had some issues running on a PS2, but it covered basically the entire library, and it did so very accurately. And it had some enhancement options as well. I would say the Wii kind of did that for the GameCube, where it had like 4 GameCube controller ports. You could play GameCube discs on there. It just ran in GameCube mode. The only reason I would say it's worse, though, is because the actual video output feature of the Wii was worse than a GameCube. But thanks to Homebrew, they've actually kind of also solved that. There was some issues with the way the Wii outputs video that made it look worse than it should have. And it was a software problem, not a hardware one, which was really crazy.
What about PS4 and PS5? Is it a similar thing there, or is there? I guess
actually, I would say
it's
exactly the same as Xbox One, where I think there's a small handful of games that don't work. So it's maybe not as robust, but I feel like most games work, and when they do work, they almost universally work better, like significantly so in most cases. Right. Basically, any game that had an unstable frame rate, it just completely fixes it. So even if you go back to, remember the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition around launch? It's just it's locked 60 FPS now. Killzone Shadowfall, locked 60 FPS now. Like, that's the case for so many games where the PS5 just solves all the performance issues.
Right.
Also, Nintendo's handhelds have a pretty good history of this, where Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance could play original Game Boy games, and Advance could also play color games. Although the Advance had a widescreen display, so it was a smaller image, but playing regular Game Boy on a Game Boy Color was quite nice and perfect, basically. The early DS has also played GBA games, which was nice, and it played them perfect. And then 3DS supports DS games, but because the screen resolution is so different, you have to scale it up, and that looks bad. Or you play it in postage stamp size, which is not great. So that wouldn't count. Actually, one of the simpler examples, the Mega Drive. I think you technically need a converter to convert the pinout. So either the power base converter or a different cartridge. But you could play Master System games on a Mega Drive. Of course, Rich is sitting there like, why the heck would you ever want to do that?
Yeah. I'm on the record as saying the Master System is only the master of evil.
Oh, Rich. But I mean, so there's several, I think, that he's saying. It's not just the Xbox One, but the original Xbox One is definitely one of those consoles where there's almost zero reason to have it anymore. Mine is shoved.
Yeah, I agree. And it's basically, somewhere. It's the machine you look back on, and it's aged so badly and looked upon so negatively. That One S update really was the first stage of Microsoft getting their act together.
It was the worst time for the worst moment in Xbox history, I would say, commercially. But I will say,
X was basically awesome.
It turned things around. But the thing is, though, if you actually look at the games that came out during the first 3 years of Xbox One, they're pretty good. There's actually a lot of good stuff. And if you look at the first party releases specifically, I think they had more better software than the Xbox Series consoles have had from first parties. Okay. Like, there's a lot more than you'd think. And it's just, I think it's just the messaging. It shows how powerful marketing and messaging is, really, because I think they did a pretty good job with the software. It's just the whole thing around Xbox One. They really had to reshape the entire image of the system to sort of gain that back. And I think they have. They're in a much better place now than they were during that era. But the system's not that bad. Just the original console maybe, but the Xbox One S and then the One X, that was a good turning point.